Hi everybody, this is Brett Lonsdale from Lightning Tools and welcome to our webinar this afternoon, at least this afternoon here where I am. And yeah, we're going to be taking a look at migrating forms. So different types of legacy forms, including InfoPath, PDF forms as well. And we'll also be exploring some of the other options that we have with the Lightning Tools Form Migrator and Kudzu in order to be able to migrate some of those legacy forms into other more modern form technologies like Lightning Forms and also the Lightning Tools Form Studio as well. So before we begin, I'm just going to do a quick intro about Lightning Tools. So anybody that is unfamiliar with our company, you'll get a bit of an intro about Lightning Tools and also myself as well. And we're going to then jump into the agenda so you understand what we're going to be covering over the next 45 minutes to an hour. And of course, there's going to be lots of live demonstrations and things like that as well. Towards the end of the webinar, there is going to be the opportunity for you to ask questions. If they come to mind during the webinar, feel free to drop them into the Q&A or into the chat window, and I'll make sure that I cover those when we're in that Q&A section at the very end of the webinar as well. Okay, so yeah, just to get started, like I say, a quick intro to Lightning Tools. So I'm one of the founders of Lightning Tools. We created the company back in 2007, and we built the company in order to address some of the challenges that different companies were facing inside of Microsoft SharePoint. So some of those challenges are around different areas, so things like permissions, also content aggregation, discussion board functionality, and of course form technologies as well, and of course as we've evolved since 2007, it's become more so for not just providing modern form technologies, but also a way to migrate your legacy forms over to those form technologies as well. So we're headquartered here in the UK, is where I am right now in Leicestershire. We also have an office and subsidiary in Orlando, Florida. We're an ISO certified company as well, so ISO 27001, ISO 9001, and we're also a Microsoft partner as well, which we've been for many, many years. So in terms of the webinar, like I said, we're going to have a quick discussion just about legacy forms, what type of legacy forms we may have inside of our organizations, and how we can go about migrating them, and why we should migrate them as well, which is a more important discussion. And then we're going to have a look not just at the form design, but also the data that is collected through those forms as well, and how we can migrate your data as well as the form design itself. And again, we're going to be looking at the importance of that. So there's of course compliance and security concerns around the data if it's being collected through a legacy form solution. We'll also take a look at the migrator and how we can use the form pilot in order to be able to create forms as well. So this is an AI-driven feature of the migrator that gives you the ability to create forms from a prompt. So if you have, for example, the need for a purchase order or a travel expense claim form or something along those lines, you can design your form from a prompt. You're going to get the ability to tweak it. You can change it completely prior to pushing it out into its destination, whether that's Power Apps or Lightning Forms, Lightning Tools Form Studio, and so on as well. So yeah, we're going to be taking a look at that, and we're also going to, at the end of the webinar, just take a look at the two offerings from Lightning Tools, which is Lightning Forms. We'll have a look at what that can provide for you, as well as the Lightning Tools Form Studio, and there'll be a demonstration of those followed by the Q&A. So over to why migrate from InfoPath. So as you've just heard me say, InfoPath isn't the only tool that we can migrate from, not the only form technology we can migrate from. However, it is one with a looming deadline. So we're going to cover that one first. And that is, of course, one of the first reasons why you should consider migrating your InfoPath forms. So it may be that you're an organization that is still using Microsoft SharePoint on premises in some way, shape, or form. Some of you may have migrated to SharePoint Online. And really, this affects both implementations. So if you are using SharePoint Online, then there is actually a hard stop. It's actually not going to work following July 2026. So around about 18 months time, the InfoPath form services is not going to be working. So you can't fill out the forms from a form library inside of SharePoint Online. We've seen this happen with business connectivity services as well, and so on. And yeah, Microsoft's suggestion is to look at other solutions like Power Apps or other third parties. They don't offer a way to migrate from InfoPath to Power Apps even. That is something that the Form Migrator can provide for you, and can also migrate to some third parties as well. So that's one of the reasons why you may want to look at migrating those InfoPath forms as well as the data. And the data is potentially also a compatibility risk, and if not a security risk as well. If you've used InfoPath forms with form libraries, so you're completing those forms via the form library and collecting the XML inside that form library, with inside of SharePoint Online, maybe you've migrated that using a migration tool from SharePoint On-Prem to SharePoint Online over a period of time. One of the challenges here is even if you've redesigned a form already in something like Power Apps, then you still need a mechanism potentially on how you could open up those XML files. So you're going to have the form library full of the XML files, which is the completed form data, and it might be that there's a compliance regulation that requires you in order to be able to open up that data for regulation purposes. So if that is the case, then migrating that data as well as the form design would be a critical step. So yeah, there's other reasons beyond that as well. And of course, if you are using SharePoint on premises, there's a consideration there that yeah, InfoPath will not be supported. So whilst you're not permanently using a software as a service platform like you would do if you're using SharePoint Online through Microsoft 365, you do have the challenge of running technology that is unsupported. And as updates occur and so on, InfoPath isn't going to be receiving those updates, and therefore cybersecurity, data breaches, and so on also become a risk within that area. Beyond that, yeah, there's of course going to be limited support or no support from Microsoft. There'll be poor integration with other applications as they evolve. They're also not mobile phone friendly, which is very much a requirement nowadays. And of course, the ever evolving Copilot features and so on would not be available to you either. So these are just some of the reasons why we may want to migrate if we're using InfoPath forms. There's other legacy forms that we mentioned. So it could be that you're using PDF forms, maybe even Word forms. And sometimes these are useful because perhaps you've got something like a vendor registration form or something, and emailing that as an attachment to a potential supplier would be yeah, convenient. You just literally sending an attachment. The challenge is that form often gets printed, it gets manually filled out with a pen and paper, it gets scanned and so on, and then it gets emailed back, and we don't really know where that form is actually being stored. So there's also a security concern there. It may even be left on a scanner physically in somebody's office, but also the storage mechanism, is that secure as well, and are we able to easily locate that data if we need to? Again, you may feel that you don't need to locate that data once you've registered that, but there are GDPR rules and things where people have a right for you to be forgotten and so on. So how can we do that when we can't find the data that's handwritten on a form stored on a drive somewhere? So there's challenges with things like PDF forms, Word forms as well. They're not the nicest things to use. I dread receiving those, and you start to try and fill them out, and the formatting goes all over the place. That's one reason alone. And likewise with Excel forms that people may send across as attachments as well. So there's some challenges there. Some of those forms could also be migrated. Again, the form design as well as any content. Also, there's other third-party legacy form vendors. So there's some third-party vendors that have changed their platform between SharePoint on premises and SharePoint online, becoming a much more expensive platform to move to if you are migrating to SharePoint online, and therefore that's another area where we can help. So if you are using third-party vendors that have effectively also become a legacy tool, then that's something that you could also migrate from moving forwards, perhaps onto, again, Power Apps or onto something like Lightning Forms. Okay, so security, usability, automation, future-proofing your organization are all valid reasons as to why we might want to migrate some of that content. So introducing the Lightning Form Migrator. So this is a tool that can help you. So again, it's not just designed for Lightning Forms or Lightning Tools Form Studio. You can use it for other destinations as well. It's actually created by a partner of ours known as Kudzu. So you may have come across Kudzu software. By all means, take a look directly at their website. So you can go to Kudzu Software and you'll be able to see the migration tool there as well. Or you're also going to find it on lightningtools.com, and you'll be able to explore the options available to you there. But yeah, the tool is available as a web application, so hosted currently by Kudzu Software. That's an Azure SaaS tool that allows you to migrate form designs and data to again these different data sources. And there is also a desktop version as well. So if you're a government or educational organization, something along those lines, and the processing of migrating data is something that you cannot have happen outside of your network, your environment, then the desktop application would be a better fit potentially for you as well. And they both do the same functionality. So you'll be able to use either of those in order to be able to migrate the form design as well as the data across to whichever destination you choose. So there's multiple different form types that I've mentioned. So yeah, InfoPath, PDF, Excel, Nintex, images of forms, things like that, that you'll be able to migrate. And again, the form pilot. The form pilot, the AI piece is still in just the web application, but there are plans to move that, which you'll find more about in due course. And again, data can also be migrated both in the desktop and in the web application. So compliance and auditing could be a reason. So you have access to historical data that may have been completed via an InfoPath form or something like that. And again, potentially legal requirements may exist that require you to still be able to open that data somehow. So yeah, we'll take a look at converting some of these legacy forms. So what we're going to do is jump into a demo in just a moment. We'll have a look at Lightning Forms as a destination. So this is going to be using our Lightning Forms product, and I'll talk more about that product a little bit later on. But effectively, it is SharePoint list driven. So any of the XML data that you have collected from an InfoPath form that resides in a form library will become list items instead. In a SharePoint list, and the SharePoint list forms will be customized. Now it's possible then that you may add further customizations through Lightning Forms. You could add some automation as well through Lightning Forms as well, and equally you could also use the Lightning Tools Form Studio to further develop those forms also. And yeah, another destination, like I mentioned, is Power Apps. So you could migrate the form design and the data across to Power Apps and design the forms further there too. Okay, so yeah, all of your fields, the structure of that data, the data types, any validation rules or formatting rules, that type of thing, all comes across along with the data optionally. You don't have to bring the data if you don't want to. And that saves you a considerable amount of time in manually creating those lists, manually creating forms, and of course creating those columns and so on as well. And even that alone is a huge time saver. I've been on the receiving end of that, working with a client before this product existed. We manually created lists on multiple forms of around about 30 or 40 different forms that all had about 100 fields, and there was lots of rules as to when these fields were displayed, when they were hidden, they were organized into different tabs, into different repeating sections, and so on. And that's a lot of work to do manually. So using something like this will really, really help you, even if you're going to tweak it a little bit later as well. So we're going to jump into the demo. We'll have a look at the web application first of all on how to migrate some data. So I'm just going to bring up first of all a form. So if you are a huge fan of InfoPath, this will make you feel all warm and fuzzy. Yeah, the InfoPath form here, very, very simple. It's one that I just put together this week, just as a small demo. And you can see it's got a couple of sections in here with approval and so on. It's got some uh, lookup columns giving different categories of hardware that we could basically order. So things like keyboards, mice, computers, monitors, phones, that sort of thing. So yeah, that's the form design that we're going to be migrating. Now that has been published to a form library. So you can see we've got just a handful of data for the demo purposes in here. So these are completed forms. And what we're going to do is basically point the Kudzu Form Migrator to this form library, and we're going to migrate the form design as well as that data over to a brand new site that I created, which I must have closed the tab on, so I'll create a new site. And sorry, no, yeah. So yeah, brand new site that I created a moment ago. So this is going to be the destination for that form as a SharePoint list containing all of those columns and the form design itself. So you can see here we've just got the default SharePoint libraries that you get when you create a new site. That's the only thing that is contained within inside this site at the moment. So going into Kudzu Forms, when we go into Kudzu Forms, you'll notice that we've got a few different options on the left-hand side. So we have the ability to read a form. We've got a wizard that will help us migrate the form. And we've also got the form pilot, as I mentioned. When you read in one of the form types, it will create the form in here. And that is something that you could then deploy multiple times to different sites and so on if you wanted to. So if you've got maybe a test site first that you want to work with, you could deploy to that, make sure that you've got everything, and then deploy to production afterwards if you want to. So yeah, the name of each of these forms, the version. So as you tweak things, you can increment the version. You can categorize them all as well, although I haven't. And then we've also got the metadata as to when they were created, who created them, etc. as well. And you've also got the option of filtering those if you need to find certain forms that you're migrating. So we're going to jump into the form wizard, and inside the form wizard, you'll see this 4-step process, which is going to take us through the entire migration. We can specify a form category at the very top here. You can see that that's the step that I've been jumping over with excitement to get into the actual migration of the form. And then in here is the different types of forms that we can migrate from. So yeah, there's mockups that you can use Balsamiq in order to be able to create. So if you're designing a form, you could use that tool. There's also Excel forms, an image of a form, which is extremely useful. So you could scan an image of a form if you've only got a paper-based form and build it on that. There is, of course, InfoPath forms that I've mentioned, Nintex and PDF. The uniform is actually the intermediary for all of these prior to pushing out to either Power Apps or to Lightning Forms. So if you wanted to, you could actually preview the form using Uniform before pushing it out into the SharePoint. And you've also got the ability to edit or reimagine the form as well, whilst it's still inside the Form Migrator, and then push those changes out into production. So we're going to choose the InfoPath one first. Now, there's 2 different ways of working with the InfoPath form, and I'm going to show you both today. So one is we're just concentrating on the form design, in which case I could browse out to the XSN, and we'll effectively upload that to Kudzu, and we'll push out the form design only. It will generate a list with all the columns that we want and the form design. Or we can also point it at a form library, and that form library could exist in SharePoint on premises or also inside of SharePoint Online. So I've already created my connection here. So in the drop down are multiple connections that I have to different sites inside of my SharePoint environment. And the one that we're going to be working with here is called the hardware order form. Once I've selected that connection, and I'll show you how to create these connections shortly as well, I can then return all of the libraries from that site and select the library in question. So I've got this document library here, which contains the form content type um, for my InfoPath forms. So I'm just going to basically select that, and we're going to give this a unique name as well. Just as a side note, if you have deployed to a form library and it's got a fairly generic name like this one, just called documents, then you would really need to give it a form name, because if I try to deploy this, it may try to deploy it as the name documents, and of course that's not going to make too much sense. We want a list that actually describes what it is going to do. So this is a hardware order form. I'm just going to put LT in there for Lightning Tools, so hardware order form, and that's our form name, and that's how it's going to display in that list of forms that we can migrate. Over to the right here, this will vary depending on what type of form we're migrating. So you'll see here we've got, do we want to bring across any trigger-based rules, any formatting rules, and are there any specific views that we want to migrate? So you could have multiple views, obviously, with inside InfoPath. So I'm just going to leave that blank to bring across the one and only view that I have. As I choose next, it's then going to read that form. So it's come up here with the the name of the form already exists. So let's just change that to, again, LT hardware order form, and hit continue. And it's going to build that inside of Kudzu, and it's given me here a success rate for the views. So again, there's only one view. The fields will all be brought across. The rules and the data sources can all be brought across using the migrator. Now, up here, you'll see some hyperlinks for the log entries. So this is all of the log entries on what is read. We've got information, we've got a warning, and 0 errors and 0 to do. So what might happen is you could have some Visual Basic inside your InfoPath form or something like that that isn't going to be migrated. Maybe it's very specific to you. So if it can't bring that across for whatever reason, if it has trouble in reading it and interpreting it, we'll add it as a to-do item. So it won't fail to bring across the form, but it may be that there's one piece of functionality on that form that doesn't work. You can check out your to-do list, and there may be something that you could use Power Apps or Lightning Forms to do manually after it's been migrated. So clicking onto the log, you can see here it's documented each of the different fields that it's found, the view, any data sources, and so on has all been captured within there. And again, that's where you're going to see any warnings or errors or anything like that as well. Now, you'll also notice over on the left-hand side that I can preview the form. So if we hit preview, it'll open up a new tab, and there's the preview of it. So again, I'm just going to pull up the InfoPath form, and you'll notice it pretty much looks the same. And this is in that intermediary uniform previewer. So this is the intermediary language that it's going to use in order for me to be able to preview the form, make sure effectively it's working as I would expect. So we'll have things like the date fields and things like that. And once we're happy, we can close that down. And if we want to, we can go in and edit the form as well. So again, there may be some changes that we want to make prior to pushing it out, but changes could also be made once it gets to its destination inside of Lightning Forms. One reason for coming in here is if you did see an error, maybe there was a certain field or something like that that was causing issues, you may decide that you're just going to delete that field at this stage prior to pushing that out, because you may need to recreate that column manually inside the SharePoint list and so on as well. So you've got the option to edit that. You'll notice that selecting on each of these fields, you'll see the properties. So we can yeah, change the data type. We can give them a different label if we want to. You can change pretty much all the different properties on each of those fields with inside this editing tool. Okay, and if we're happy with all of that, we can hit next. And on here is where we can choose the writer. So in my license, I've only got the license to migrate to Lightning Forms, but depending on the license that you get, you may also migrate to something like Power Apps as well. So by choosing Lightning Forms as the destination, you'll notice it's got some Lightning Forms specific settings. So on here is conversion settings, which is to do with the layout and the views. So I've just got one view at the moment. If we go to the Lightning Form settings here, you'll again see that we've got a SharePoint connection to where we're going to deploy this. And rather than choose an existing one, I'm going to jump up here to the newly created site, and I'm just going to copy the URL to the site, and we're going to come back here to Kudzu, and we're going to create a new connection, and I'm just going to paste in the URL to that site, and we'll just give it a name. So this is a InfoPath webinar is the name of that site. I gave it, of course, we could give it a description and so on. And before we hit save, we can just hit test, and that's going to make sure that we can authenticate and we can view that site okay. So we can. So I'll save this, and that has now saved the destination for it. Okay, so couple of options on here as well. If you're redeploying, you can actually choose what you want to do. You could update the list if it already exists, or you can overwrite the list if it already exists, or just simply fail and stop. And if your form contains images, which mine does, it has the circles from the Lightning Tools logo, we can choose what we're going to do with those. Do we want to drop that into the SharePoint site assets folder or library, sorry. We can embed it. It can be Azure Blob Storage, etc. So there's a few different options that we have available to us there. Okay, so I'm just going to go through, hit next, and you can see that it's actually going through and creating the SharePoint list, and it's done that already. And now it's going through and deploying the form to that newly connected site. And again, we get summary information showing us whether it was able to do everything as predicted. We get a report here, so we can browse the report that's going to basically contain everything that was migrated. So you've got that in PDF format. And we have a link here to the actual list. I already still have it open, so let's just go to the list contents of the InfoPath webinar site, and we'll hit reload. And what you'll see here is we've got the newly created list called LT Hardware Order Forms. We don't have any data because we haven't done that part of it yet. But what we do have, if we navigate into this, is the list with all of the columns defined and the form design itself as well. So let's wait for that to finish loading. Okay, so we'll have a look at Lightning Forms first of all. And what you'll notice on the command bar here is the link to Lightning Forms. So this is Lightning Forms is a contextual form design tool, meaning that I can, as a business user, navigate to a SharePoint site, create a list that I want, and I can begin to customize the out of the box forms that you get with that list. So that includes the new form, the edit form, and the display form. And we've also got the option of adding other forms as well if we want to. So if we wanted like a small approval section or something like that, we can create our own ASPX forms. So I'm going to hit customize on the new form for obviously creating new content. And that's going to load in the form design, and it loads it in within a new tab, but within inside the same site. and we'll just give that a moment to load the form design for me. Okay, so may still be doing a few things. See the scroll bar moving, but yeah, you can see the image. You can see the title, which came across from that InfoPath form design, and in here you'll also notice that we've got the different fields. There's different ways of doing that. We've got some rich text here, giving it a proper label. So this is actually quite a nice feature. Instead of just having F name, which was the programmatic name on my InfoPath form for first name, it's actually dropped in the rich text control with the label of first name and then hidden the programmatic name. So you can manipulate that if you want to. But yeah, we've got the layout. It's a multi-column layout for each of those different sections with the headers and all the way down to the approval section at the very bottom. So this is something that I can continue working in Lightning Forms to customize it more. We'll jump into some of those settings very shortly. You'll see the fact that it is going to be a medium-sized panel as well. If we had multiple columns, maybe 3 columns wide, we might want to increase the size of that, but I'm happy with how that is at the moment. So I'm just going to save and close. And once that has loaded, I am just going to control refresh my site purely because the size of the panel is cached by SharePoint. So it may think that I was working with a full size form, which I wasn't. So if we hit add new item now, you'll see the panel open up on the right hand side, and there's our form. So as it was in InfoPath with exactly the same layout, it's a SharePoint list form. So we can begin to collect some data in here in each of these different sections. We've got our lookup columns working, and yeah, the date columns and so on. So it's brought across the right data types for each of those fields. So I'm just going to close that because we're going to import some data first of all. So we're going to jump back into Kudzu, and we'll hit finish since we completed the form design. And what you'll notice here, if we sort by the created date, so there's our LT hardware order form. So we can expand this. We can see the properties on it and so on. We can edit that form, etc. But with that selected, we can also hit the data option. So when I hit the data option, it's going to map those fields for me. So notice we've got the hardware order form in the form library, and the connection exists to the InfoPath webinar site that we create. And if you look over on the right hand side here, we've got the option of overwriting items if we're rewriting to the destination. We can promote any metadata around the creation date of those forms. If there's a large amount of content, we can also be notified via email once this is completed. And we've also got the option here to archive the source form as a PDF attachment. That's quite an important one, because if we decide that we don't necessarily want to bring the data across into a SharePoint list and have that open up with the newly created form, what we could do is actually decide that we're going to create PDF attachments for that compliance reason. So if somebody says, I need to see proof of this form that was completed 3 years ago, then we will at least have it not in XML format where it's difficult for people to read, but we could actually provide it in a PDF attachment. We also have a test flight that you can do. So if you've got maybe 10,000 items that you want to migrate, you can just run with 10 or whatever number you specify, and it will just migrate those, and you can make sure that it's going to be successful. And of course, the next time you would overwrite the items when you do it for real. So so let's just hit start migration, and that has started to migrate the data, as you can see. So there's just 4 items. We do get a log that we can go and have a look at. But what I'm going to do is just come back to our form and let's refresh, reload. And you can see the data come across from that InfoPath form, and we've now got it visible. So I only opened up the new form, so let's just customize the edit form here. Make sure those designs are available. So I'm not going to actually make any changes, just bring the design changes in from the migration, and then we'll save and close this and open up one of those existing items. Okay, so that's saving and closing. And of course, we don't have a title. That's something we could take care of. But I'm just going to choose edit. I didn't control refresh this time, which I should have done. So it's not going to open up in a panel. But if I do control refresh in a moment, you'll see that it will open up in a panel. But there we go. We can see that the data is mapped to all of the right columns from that InfoPath XML here into the SharePoint site. Okay, so that is how we can use the Kudzu Migrator to migrate a form along with the data. Now, I did mention there's a desktop version as well. So this is the desktop version, effectively does the same thing. One of the nice things about the desktop version is the fact that it also has an ROI calculator as well. And what that will do is actually discover your forms for you from your environment, and you can put in the hourly cost of your labor in order to actually manually create these forms, and it will score your forms based on how complex they are, how many hours typically it would take in order to rebuild that from scratch, and then works out the cost based on your labor time. And yet you can determine whether using Lightning Forms would be a good return on investment or not. So that's something that you can do. And then the only difference with this one, when we're bringing in the form, we can add forms to a location. So we create a workspace essentially. We click add forms, select the forms that we want to add into that workspace, and that's what brings them into this list here. And yeah, they'll all get scored. We can see the number of fields, number of data sources with each one, and so on. And if we want to deploy one, we can just basically select it and do the same thing. We can preview it, so that uses the same uniform previewer. So this is a different form, but we can preview that, make sure it's all going to work successfully, and then we can write that out as well. And I'm going to show you this one, in fact. So what we will do is actually write it. In fact, let me just bring up that preview one more time, because what I do want to point out on this InfoPath form is the fact that it has repeating sections. So it's a bit more complex than the one that I just did. You'll notice that it's got this previous employment section. It's got a references section and an education section. We treat those as sublists, which if you've used Lightning Forms before will make sense. Effectively, they're another list embedded on the main form. So this is one that I uploaded a while back, and what I'm going to do is the write button to write this out to Lightning Forms. I just skipped a step. Sorry, I clicked twice, so it's actually already started writing it out, not to the connection that I wanted to write it to. So just bear with me on that one, and we'll rewrite it out to the same InfoPath webinar site here. So let's again just grab that URL. And we'll come back here. In fact, whilst that does its thing, let me just write it out from the web version. So I've got the same form here. This employment application, and we're going to choose right. Just one thing I skipped over last time, by the way, was the fact that I can reimagine the form as well. So if I just delete this one called submission copy, when we have a view, we'll be able to preview that view and so on. But you can also reimagine it, which will create a copy of the view that you've got and a preview of it, and you can reimagine it for some of these different destinations. So that gives me the ability to change the data type. I can change the layout. I can delete fields and so on. Effectively create a new view and deploy that view instead of the default view. So you have that option as well that I skipped over just a moment ago. Okay, so I think I'm good with that one. Let me just come back. Okay, so we will choose the employment application, and we're going to hit right. We'll select Lightning Forms, and the location of this one is going to be our InfoPath webinar connection that you saw me create, and we'll hit go on that. So it's generating the lists like we did before. Now it's multiple lists because again there's those repeating sections, so they will become lists instead of just sections on the form. That allows us to have that one-to-many type relationship. And it's now deploying the forms. Okay, so I should just take another moment or two. And I'm impatient, so I'm just going to jump here into the site contents. Let's get that loading whilst it finishes off. And what you can see are multiple lists. Each of these are named accordingly. So we've got the employment history, the education history, the references, reviews, etc. This is the main list. And so we will once more just jump into Lightning Forms here and hit customize on the new form, and you'll see the layout that it's created with those sublists embedded on it. Okay, so it's building the form. We can see some of the fields starting to take place. There's the kudzu logo, the title on the form, and so on. Of course, it's doing a bit more this time because it's got those multiple lists to work with. Okay, so just scrolling down to these different sections. So here you can see under education, we've actually got an embedded list. So that has its own form, of course, which could also be customized and has been in many cases, and likewise with references and so on. So if we just save and close this one, it would have been good to actually make that form bigger because it's going to be quite wide with the sublists. And again, we're just going to control refresh. So as we choose add new item, you'll see here the form layout with those repeating sections migrated across to sublists, and we can input data through there as well. Okay, so moving on from that, that is our migration of InfoPath forms. What we'll do is just have a quick look at a PDF form, and also using the form pilot as well, so the AI capabilities. So the AI side is great for coming up with ideas for new forms and the different fields and so on that we want, creating the layout for us, and really speeding up the process of getting those lists built and also the columns defined with their data types and so on as well. So we'll jump back into Kudzu here, and let's close that down, and we're going to go into the form pilot. So with form pilot, we can just simply give a prompt. So you can see some example prompts here. Travel expense report with sections for airfare, lodging, etc. Really, we can come up with anything, and we can be quite specific as well. So I'm just going to please, it just doesn't seem right to not say please. So please create a order form for repairing bicycles, just bikes, because my spellings is bound to go to shot when I'm typing. So for repairing bikes and upgrading bikes with parts. There we go. So we'll give that as a prompt. We'll hit go, and it's going to generate a uniform form model for me, where we can review the form again. So we've got the order details, so customer details in here. We've got the bike details as well. You can see the different types of bikes, different conditions of bikes. We've got the repair details that we want to have fixed, upgrade details as well, with descriptions, etc., and even payment details. So it's done a thorough job. If there's anything that we want to tweak, we can. So we can tweak over here on the left-hand side, preview over here on the right-hand side, and you can also use the form pilot to tweak it as well if there was additional things that you needed. Okay, so let's hit go. So again, this is giving us the detail on what's going to happen. So it's going to be successful. And there's our bike repair and order form. So we will write that out. Over to our InfoPath webinar site again and hit go. Okay, so it's created the list, deployed the form. All we have to do is go through and test it. So if we just take a look at the site contents once more. So in here, we've got our bike repair and upgrade order forms. And to save time on the webinar, I'll just show you that, yeah, the list has been created. We've got all of our columns defined. And of course, we could jump into Lightning Forms and do the same as what we've already done with InfoPath and so on. So that's created that for me. The other types of forms, like I said, you could bring in PDFs and so on. I'll let you take my word for that now, since you've seen a few examples already. So I just wanted a bit about Lightning Forms versus Form Studio, as to why we've got two different technologies here that you may want to choose from that you're deploying to. So Lightning Forms is what you've mostly been seeing up to now. In fact, we can jump into that bike one and use that to redesign it somewhat. So we've got the fact that it is designed for business users to design forms contextually with inside a site, which is very much the model for InfoPath back in the day. It would mostly be business users that are creating these forms. It's a drag and drop form design experience. You can do styling, you can add logic, you can create sublists, etc. And there's also actions and rules that you can also define inside of your form as well. The difference between that and the Form Studio is the Form Studio is very much an enterprise organization where you can design the form centrally, you can add logic with workflows. You get scheduled and triggered workflows, and also Microsoft 365 actions like creating plans and tasks and things like that. So you can integrate with other applications in the Microsoft 365 suite, and you can deploy many times to multiple sites across different tenants if you want to. So it's more of a centralized way of working with inside a design studio and then deploying afterwards to where you want to deploy to. So yeah, using Lightning Forms, you can build responsive modern forms. They can open up in the browser. You've got things like conditional logic and automation that you can add, and basically you've also got the ability to configure actions around those list items. There is also an optional Lightning Tools actions builder that you can add to the list level, and then we've got the Form Studio with that deployment across sites. It's got scheduled actions, and you can also do things like applying permissions and so on to your sites when they get deployed as well. So just a quick touch on those. We are going to be hosting a webinar next month on Lightning Forms and Lightning Tools Form Studio. So if you want to know more about these, you could sign up for that or arrange a demonstration with myself. But we do have this bike repair and upgrade form. So let's go into the design of that one, and I'll show you the sort of work that we can do with inside each of these forms. So if I go into the new form, first of all, one of the things I've got the option of doing is actually resetting the form design. So when we have got the multiple column layouts and so on that the Kudzu Form Pilot created for me, I can reset all of that back to what it would look like as an ordinary custom list, and then do all of my customizations just using Lightning Forms itself. So there is that uncustomized form button over in the top right hand corner, which I'll just give it a minute or two so I'm not confusing it, let it load all these fields, and then we will go through and reset it, and I'll show you around some of the different design options we have inside of Lightning Forms. Okay, so let's just uncustomize the form now. So we'll end up with what would look like a normal custom list with all of the fields, just a single column layout in order from top to bottom. And that's what we can now begin to customize using Lightning Forms. So like I say, you're working with inside the list itself. Only people with full control to the site can do this. If we pull up the form design and customize the new form again, we'll be customizing that blank form. Okay, and I'm not going to finish this in terms of creating a polished form, but just point out some of the things that we can do, and then you can catch up more on the other webinar. So you do have the form settings, which we pointed out already. This is how big we want our side panel to be. There are different actions. So notice you can create command bar actions. I could also customize the existing action buttons as well. So if we wanted to send form instead of just saving the form, maybe we want to notify somebody that this has been completed. We can make that visible or enabled for certain people, and when we can configure the action, we can do things like saving the form. We can send an email. We can make sure that the email is going from contextual information like the current user. So whoever is currently signed in, it's going to be their email address that is used to send this. We could send it to a field on the form. I'm not sure if Copilot did give me an email field, although it was the customer, so that wouldn't make sense. But anyway, it's an email column. And then in here, we could give it a subject, which could also be dynamic. That could be the title field or whatever coming from our form. So we've got a send email action as well as a save action. We could update field values, convert to PDFs. We can do all sorts of things using the different actions in here, even creating Word documents and things like that if we want to. Okay, but yeah, save, send, and close form will do for now. It's going to complain that I didn't finish that one, which is true. So let's just delete that. Okay, So you can create your own custom actions. You can also add styling, as you can see. So getting into the styling, we can add generic styles. We can also add conditional styles as well. Um, so if this is something, let's say, that had been approved or declined, we could apply different colors and different formatting to each of these. So just jumping into the styling against each field allows me to add a rule. So it could be the status is approved as a rule, and then if it is approved, we can change different options, such as the background of a field, the label color of the field, and so on. That you within your form can create things like tabs. So we've got the option of building those. You can select how many tabs you want, what sort of layout you want in each of these tabs, and then we can drag and drop the fields into those different columns and so on. So that's the type of thing that we can do. You will get version management as well. So as we save the design of our form, that's going to increment the version, allowing us to revert back if we need to a previous version. So a little snippet of sort of form design there in Lightning Forms. What we also have is the Form Studio, which is very much the same thing. And actually here you can see more of a polished example of the type of thing that you can do. So this is actually embedded within the Form Studio, the Lightning Forms. So you have that tabbed layout in here. We have repeating sections, which we refer to as sublists, and a subdocument library as well, and so on. So it's got a completely different layout, and you also get those stylings and so on that you can apply. Some of the differences with the Studio is you've got scheduled actions as well as triggered actions. So the scheduled actions could be, for example, if people are submitting expense claims, rather than emailing those on an ad hoc basis, what we could do is any submitted expense claims all get sent to finance on the last day of the month, and from there they get approved. So you can add that schedule as to when you want this to kick in. So you can give it a date and time, and then a frequency after that. And you've also got the filter criteria. So obviously we don't want to send to finance for approval all the approved expenses. We only want the ones that are not approved to be sent. So you can build out the filter in there, and it will send the necessary ones. And then your actions are very much what you saw in Lightning Forms, but you also have the Microsoft 365 actions as well. So we can create tasks for people in Planner. We can create Teams notifications. We can manipulate permissions. We can create meetings, and so on. So lots of different features that we have available through those scheduled actions. And there's also things like triggered actions as well. So this is when an item is updated or an item is created, that type of thing. And finally, you've also got look and feel, different assets like images. You can build out pages with web parts on them, anything that forms the solution. You can design all of that here inside of the Lightning Tools Form Studio. And when you're ready, you can publish it. And the publishing option gives you the ability to publish to multiple different sites, and you can maintain them, you can update them, you can remove the deployment of those, and so on. So it's more of a centralized design tool, but very much along the same functionality on the actual form design as what you get with Lightning Forms. Okay, so that's too much to cover in this webinar, when we spent most of it on the actual migration. But again, next month, we will be running our Forms webinar where we're going to deep dive into both of these products, and you'll see each of the features in there. But for now, what I'm going to do is just give you some next steps if you're interested. You can book a demo if you want to see something in a bit more detail. So that could be the Migrator, it could be the Lightning Forms or the Lightning Tools Forms Actions, or any other product for that matter. There is also a trial, so please get in touch with us. In fact, you can use the chat window. Just type in something like "follow up with me." We'll be able to see who wrote that, and we'll be able to follow up with you to arrange a trial of the Migrator or any of the other products. Or just reach out to us. you can reach out to sales@lightningtools.com or brett@lightningtools.com if you've got any questions as well. But for now, let me just check out if there's any question. I just see one question, I think, in the chat pane, nothing in the Q&A. Okay, so yeah, can the migration be the InfoPath XML forms, or does it only migrate list customized in InfoPath? Yeah, so it's the XML forms that get migrated. It's the data in the XML that is migrated into the form. So if we just jump back here to the source, so each of these is actually an XML form, which I can no longer open up in the browser. It's not allowing me to do so, even though that is stipulated by the but yeah, there we go. You can see this is the Nicola Warburton order form.xml. So it's the data that was migrated from that. There was more data that migrated in terms of columns than you actually see here in the view. So it's not just the metadata shown in the view, it's the actual content from the XML that is migrated across. I think that was the only question at this stage. So again, if you're interested in learning more, head out to lightningtools.com and you're going to see the book demo on every page. So if you want to find out more about the Form Studio that is here, we've got the Lightning Forms. There's also some other tools like Lightning Tools Actions, the document generator, and so on. And you'll also see the Migrator in there as well. So you can book a demo on any of those products. Pricing information you'll find on the next flyout menu. So just click the information that you're interested in, and you'll be able to find the pricing data there. Okay, but we've gone over by a minute, so thank you very much, everybody, for attending the webinar. Look forward to seeing you next month if you can make it on the Forms webinar. And yeah, thanks again. I'll see you soon.